Welcome to High Oracles Reiki Spiritual Healing Channel. And so we are addressing a very sensitive topic today. And so I wanted to give you a trigger warning so that if you are, feeling triggered by any of the things, the topics that are being said, this content, you can just return another time. You can come back and review this video at another time. So we are talking about the lynchings that have been going on, the Bassinga, and that is in Cobb County, Georgia. That's really close to Atlanta, where I'm from. And a lot of the people in that area are predominantly white or Mexican. There are some black people there because there's Six Flags and all of that kind of stuff. But it is one of those areas that is very racist. It's very racist. You have the Cobb County Jail, the Big Chicken. All of those types of places are there, and it's a very racist place. For black people. And for a lynching to happen in that area, in the apartment complex or whatnot, it is, very disturbing. I want to, send my condolences to the family. And we need to make sure that we are coming together so that this does not keep happening. And so I first have to start off with, there have been these types of lynchings in the black community early on so that these people would instill fear into our men, into the community. So when a person is paralyzed by fear, and let's make sure what we're understanding here is that you'll have, the officials, the officials' family, the sheriff department, the police department at that time in the 40s, 50s, even up into the 60s and 70s, where these top officials would, would mob a certain family or single out a certain black family and attack that family. And in many times, on just suspicion or lies, they would take people into custody, and those people were unalive, like Emmett Till. Those young black men were unalive. And so we have to make sure that we're coming together so that when we see these types of attacks forming in those people's community, that we are able, to stop that type of attack, that we are not sitting back and not saying anything when these types of lynchings have occurred, and they have been these lynchings have been occurring, all over last year into this year. They have began again, in rural areas, and they are letting you know that, they are racist and they are trying to instill fear in our people so that we will, be paralyzed and not do anything about it, especially, for our men. So a lot of the men have, reached out to me over the last couple of days because of the videos that I've done, the lives that I've done on TikTok and on Facebook. And they were letting me know, how they felt about, coming together with the black women, and, their gifts are not totally developed because they cannot be developed with any other race. No other race can develop those types of gifts. They don't have that type of knowledge. And in many cases, it will be bred out of your children, when you're going into other races. So I got a lot of, backlash from the men. And what I wanted to, rectify on this video is that the first thing, when we're talking about, standing up for our people, in our community, standing up for our women in our community, standing up for our children, so that these types of lynchings, shootings, unalivings, any of those types of things will not keep happening, then I'm not talking to, the ones who are the raccoons in our society. I'm not talking to those men who are not chosen ones. I'm not talking to the men who have been standing on the block 30 years selling their own people out all of their entire life. And then, here they come in a midlife crisis and they have no skills. They have nobody to rely on. And again, they have to go back and get those, addicts that they have been harming all of their life. They have to go back and get those women that they have prostituted all of their life. I'm talking to the men who are the chosen ones, who know how to respect their mother, who wanted to get their mother a house, who wanted to understand, why their, mother and father was not there, who was the one that was providing and doing the best that they could, the one that wanted to go, and come together in the community and the family, to help the family, to help the, the children who have their own families now, and they are very respectful in their family's life. They are respected. These are the men that I'm talking about that have skills. I'm not talking about those men who want, to enslave their people. Those are not chosen ones. Okay, so I wanted to make that perfectly clear on this topic, because I wanted you to understand that the respected men are the chosen ones. The respected men, as I was saying, in my video, are the ones who stand up in their house, in their lives, in the household, for the community, who are, protectors. Those are the men who chose to stay. No matter what mental state they were in or capacity, we understand why they were not in the mental state that they needed to be in, because they have been set up on by the entity, by the colonizer, by the enslaver, just like these young men who are being lynched. So we have to rely on the chosen ones who have this type of knowledge, who have this type of knowledge that this has been going on in our community. And, we understand who is the real culprit behind these types of lynchings, the real culprit why they do not want black men to compete in society. And these are the black men who do not, take their affairs up with women, who do not attack the women that's in their lives, that's going through, in many cases, the same type of attacks from these people, not wanting them to compete in society, taking the jobs, taking the welfare, talking down about the black women. And we have to get it in two ways from, our black men who this has been embedded in, not to defend their own homes, not to defend, to leave their women to defend themselves, to leave their children to defend themselves. And so in a nutshell, I'm not talking about the cowards, and I had 8:48 as I was, when I looked at the timestamp. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the men who are standing up in their lives, the men who went out into the woods to see if this person could unalive themselves. And we know that this was not true. We know that Bassinga could not unalive himself and, get up, climb up in a tree, and then, hang himself. So we know that all of these are lies, and now we're coming to an agreement that this is the fear tactic that these types of people who are in high positions have been hiding in the shadows, and they are being exposed for their behavior, for their misconduct, for their hatred and their racism. in the community, that these are the people that, those cowardice men who have been standing on the block selling out their own people, have been selling their own people to these people, running from them in cowardice, giving them their gifts and handing their children over to them for sacrifice. And so now that it has been perpetuated in our generation, that, nobody has stood up, to check these types of behaviors in other men. So it's enough for a lot of these men who, want to be this type of way, who have given themselves over into this type of entity, into this type of racism and hatred for their own people, for their own children, that it is going to be able to sacrifice their own women, for their own selves. They'll sacrifice their own children for, their own lives. And these are the types of, people that we have to make sure that we stay separated from, that we do not want, and the entity can have them. And I keep saying this to you, the colonizers and the enslavers can have those types of men. Okay, so we have the understanding that only the chosen ones are the ones that's standing up, going to these places, making sure that they're doing the investigative work. They're making sure that they, on their lives, on their videos, that they're making sense and bringing light to these types of situations in Georgia, where I'm from, or wherever this type of atrocity may be happening in society. And, I really appreciate those chosen ones. And, again, those brothers who felt the need to address me on the situation of getting married. Nobody wants to get married to you. Nobody wants to get married to you, that you're going to enslave someone and you're going to sit there like a king with no skills, and you're going to put and pimp your woman and your children, your family. Nobody wants you. So we can do without, that rebuttal from you. We want the chosen one men who are going to do the investigative work, like and I forgot the football player's name that stood up, that had the knee, that took a knee, and did the investigative work, and had the forensics work done on the other young man that was, I think, the Columbia University. I think that's what it was, that the man was hung in a tree there as well. So we want to make sure that these are the chosen one men that we want in life, that we want to be able to stand up. Those are the leaders. Those are the ones that God has inserted in this position to make sure that we understand. Not only has this been going on over in the past, and we had, again, those raccoons, back then, that say, oh, they just took little Timmy. There's nothing I can do. Okay, so we had those raccoons of the past, but we have these chosen ones of this generation, that we're absolutely standing against this type of negative energy. We're going to, make our voices known on our platforms, and we are going to call these people out, for in those positions, in those elite positions, for their cowardice. So I really appreciate your support. I thank all of you. Make sure that you are sharing, and subscribing to me. You can reach out to me if in the description below, if you've had this type of pattern happen in your family, where people were being lynched, and people were being attacked and unalived in your family in a specific way, where you see these cycles repeating themselves. You can reach out to me for a cleanse, and we can remove that type of negative energy from your lineage, the generational curses that have been sent to you by these colonizers. Please share, and subscribe to me again over all of my platforms. You can donate to me, and you can, reach out to me under in any of the descriptions below. I can't get it out, guys. I thank all of you for your support. Please like, share, and subscribe again. Assalamu alaikum.